Now, on the surface, they seem to be embodiments of the urban dream, with successful careers and families that, of course, till they hit the headlines in horrific murder-suicide cases. The vice president of an IT company, a senior official of the Research and Analysis Wing, and SP of police. What did they have in common? Well, they all killed their nearest relatives before killing themselves. Were there warning signs that were ignored? Did the stress of high-pressure jobs, urban living and isolation all turn into a deadly cocktail?
A horrific crime in a fit of rage. IIM Ahmedabad alumni and now the vice president of an IT firm in Gurgaon, 44 years old Rajinder Kumar stabbed his wife Shweta as their 8-year-old daughter watched. Their other child, a 10-month-old boy, slept as their parents argued in the kitchen before Rajinder stabbed Shweta 10 times and then called the police. When the police arrived, the father was sitting with the baby in his arms outside their house.
आरोपी का ये कहना है कि जो एक्स्ट्रा मैरिटल रिलेशंस या अफेयर होने की वजह से काफ़ी झगड़ा था।
उसकी मेन फ्रस्ट्रेशन मैं आपको बताता हूँ ये है कि उसके सारे कलीग्स कहीं आज वो बहुत अच्छी पोस्ट पर बहुत अच्छे डिपार्टमेंट्स में हैं। उसको ऐसा लगता है कि मैं आज फेलियर हूँ लाइफ में, इसकी वजह से उसका दोष श्वेता पर बिना किसी कारण से मरा गया।
Incidents of rage are no longer few and far between in urban areas. On March 1st, a 52-year-old official with the Research and Analysis Wing allegedly killed his wife and 2 teenage children and then committed suicide. The police still don't know why. On 28th February, 2 brothers were shot dead on the outskirts of Delhi after an argument over parking space. On 25th February, a 34-year-old man killed his 2 daughters and wife and then killed himself in West Delhi. Also on 25th February, the Jagdalpur SP shot dead his wife and then himself hours after he was suspended for misbehaving with a judge. Their 2 children were injured in the firing. In all these cases, the accused did not have any previous medical history of mental illness. Psychiatrists in Delhi say most of their patients come with anger issues.
Breakdown of the cushioning effect of the joint families, nuclearization and ultra-nuclearization of the family system, which has actually led to virtual families.
Police officials say that often rage that stems from personal issues spill out onto the streets, where it is manifested as a collective emotion.
Seen in 16 December gang rape case, it is a typical now outburst of cumulative anger which people are now demonstrating.
Living in an age of instant gratification also leads to people losing control at the smallest of provocation. Psychiatrists say that most of these accused are not criminals but victims of their own lifestyle. But is this a trend that can be curbed or will it spiral out of control? In New Delhi, this is Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, joining us to look at all aspects of these cases and indeed whether they're symptomatic of a larger urban problem, Neeraj Kumar, former police commissioner of Delhi, Dr. Nimesh Desai, director of the Institute of Human Behavior and Allied Sciences, also Dr. Jitendra Nagpal, senior psychiatrist of Mulchand Medicity, joining us tonight. Dr. Desai, let me begin with you. You know, without generalizing these specific cases, it's just 3 or 4 of them have happened within days of each other and hit the headlines in the most shocking way. But do you see these as examples symptomatic of a larger trend of extreme reactions, irrational anger, triggered sometimes by very trivial incidents? Why do these happen?
There can't be too much of a doubt about what you said. Extreme reactions to minor frustrations, especially in urban setting, is a reality of the 21st century. But in a lighter way and yet seriously, I think we need to recognize and say something else. If in most things we are going the American way, what else do you expect here? I mean, rage reactions, suicides, homicides, extended suicides, that's going to be the order of the day, unfortunately. Unless we can, and I don't think we are doing that too well right now, unless we can still, as a progressive 21st century westernizing society, still retain the values of what this culture had. And we aren't doing that too well. That's still a challenge that we could meet. But sure, the cliched term of stress or being stressed is a major issue, and the protective mechanisms of the past are fading out.
Okay, so, Dr. Nagpal, if I can bring you in also, do you see rising rage as a fallout of perhaps single unit families, nuclear families, lack of a support system? Are these all kind of emotionally or physically taking its toll for people living in our cities today?
There wouldn't be any doubt about that. There's no doubt that communication as a benchmark of determining the human emotion factor is certainly coming down. There's practically, it's not about generation gap between family, what we have seen in all the three cases mentioned here. It's about a huge virtual communication gap where people do not find the cushioning effect of day-to-day stress factors which actually need to be managed back in the family in the evening. The work-life balance is significantly being lost out in the protest of trying to create a mental adjustment within people who matter most, and probably the fallout are on those people who are taken for granted in all the cases you mentioned here. There's no doubt that acts like these, brutal acts like these do not happen overnight. What we're missing out, you said, the flag signs, you know, the burning signs of a aberration or some sort of a disturbance in the most educated people. We are not somehow, as Professor Desai said rightly, looking out to the devaluing emotional intelligence in the most educated people. While we support the cause of intellectual pursuits, materialistic gains, best of the jobs, matchable to the world across, but do we realize that here is a human being who's also being tested in terms of his own coping mechanisms, the ambition, the materialism, and way back when we look at young people, all the children involved here who are watching the dastardly act happening in front of them, they're going to be the leaders of emotions tomorrow. A very poor precedence.
Particularly true in one of the cases, and shocking as it is, really, an 8-year-old child watching her mother being killed by her father in front of her eyes.
Yeah, the insensitivity of the parent to be doing that in the presence of the child, that insensitivity, that indifference to what the child might go through is striking, to say the least. And that's where the urban modern 21st century living is leading all of us to.
Right, let me bring in Neeraj Kumar, who's been Police Commissioner of Delhi and indeed a part of the police force for so many years. In your long career, Mr. Kumar, what has been your experience? Have there always been cases like this? Do you see a sudden rise in a sense of cases that seem to stem from, lack of a better term, urban rage, essentially?
I would say that there is no such study which would say that there is a rising trend or a decreasing trend. But suffice it to say that with rapid urbanization, with rising aspirations, with pressures of material gains, and the family life of people being broken down, this phenomena will go up, and it will lead to many more violent crimes.
But, two of the immediate cases we're talking about are that of a police officer, the SP in Jagdalpur, and also a raw officer who killed their families before killing themselves. Now, you've presided over an 80,000 strong police force for people who are in a sense in the front lines, in high stress level jobs. Can this stress become almost unmanageable? Does the police have mechanisms for coping with situations like this for their workforce?
We do have mechanisms, but they are few and far between. For instance, yoga is part of our training. Meditation is also encouraged. But where is the time for people to practice yoga or practice meditation? An average policeman is overworked, underpaid, his living conditions are terrible. The stress from within his department and the stress from without are tremendous. And as a police officer myself, I have experienced it firsthand. Right.
I want to bring in Alec Padamsee, also joining us from Mumbai at this point. Alec, we've been discussing these cases, families from the outside at least, successful in all the normal connotations of that term. But then fathers turning on their children, on their wives, then killing themselves. What is it that you think? Do you believe that society, in a sense, has a larger role to play? Were warning signs ignored in these cases? What is it that we as a society could have done?
I can only tell you that the stress on modern living today, not only in Bombay or anywhere else in the country, but also all over the world. People are committing suicide. And in America, where guns are allowed, they open fire on children. The the whole point is the stress and the competition. People have become so competitive, particularly in a time of recession. Suddenly, if we discovered oil, I can tell you most of the violence would disappear, because like in Arabia, everyone would be rich. But because everyone today is poorer than they were yesterday, the stresses are tremendous on police officers, on share market operators, on anyone and everyone. And then worse than that is the fact that commuting in almost every city in India has become a nightmare. A nightmare, unless you can afford
and
a
instances
helicopter.
of road rage, I think, just point to that on the roads,
yes,
at least rage seems to be spilling over.
And if you're driving your own vehicle, the tension of just driving. I mean, coming here to the studio just now, luckily you sent a chauffeur-driven car.
I hope you didn't pull a gun on anybody, Alec.
No, but I can tell you that I was very tense, because we had to drive at incredible speed to get here in, even a little late. But I can imagine, and I've given up driving because it's too tension-making. If you drive in Bombay traffic, it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare. It is like going through a daily nightmare, and I wonder how people survive. How can they keep cool when the whole temperature in your body is rising and your eyes are getting bloodshot?
So is
you
it urban?
must expect violence.
Oh,
you must expect violence.
Dr. Desai,
Actually,
are all
research-
aspects of urban living then adding to this problem?
Sure. There's actually a study that looked at that. Our own study, funded by the Indian Council of Medical Research from 2004 to 2009, looked at Delhi, Lucknow, Chennai across all classes of the society, and leave alone what the psychiatrists would see as mental health problems in urban areas. When they looked at what the communities and people perceive as mental health problems, the top ranking problem was the stress of day-to-day life. And we are talking about the previous decade. We are talking about already 5 or 7 years ago. So, like we are all saying in different ways, it's essentially, and again tongue-in-cheek a little, it's the price that the human race is paying at all levels, individually, communities and nations, for the success.
Okay,
It's
so we've
unfortunately
identified in a
that.
sense the problem. Dr. Nagpal, what do you see as possible solutions?
I also recommend the fact that why do we have to wait for more studies to come? Aren't the clinical profiles, if you collect data from 4,000, 5,000 psychiatrists across the country, look at Delhi itself. I mean, we both agree here that we come across nothing less than 5 to 7 cases of solely anger management, whether they are in the form of personality problems or depression or drug abuse that come to us every day. This is enough for police to take into cognizance the need to intervene early, to identify the flag signs of the community, spread the message of a primary care campaign in the localities that, okay, you want happy life, go beyond job as a definition of success. What we are seeing is there is an incessant rise in the lack of understanding what is success itself. As you said rightly, materialistic gain as a parameter or an indicator of success is going to be the price the human race is paying now.
What is it, you brought up the police. What is it that you believe the police could do in a situation like this?
Very importantly, I think the police is not only doing a wonderful job, agreed that they identify, they come at the right time and take on these cases. But I think from the humane touch, the policeman does a wonderful role, and we have seen people how they help old people across the road. Policemen do that. Why not?
We also have a beat policeman coming to check on senior citizens and so on. But would this be? Let me take this across, in fact, to Neeraj Kumar. Neeraj Kumar, do you believe that policing can be linked to problems within families, with urban living leading to so much isolation as well? Where are the support structures that people used to have earlier? Neighbors are live completely isolated lives. They don't know what's happening from one house to another. Could the police possibly have a role in all this? Could certain public interventions then have a larger role to play?
Sure. Police can play a very important role. Our beat constables who visit senior citizens and other people living by themselves, they do come to know what is happening inside their homes. But also please spare a thought for the policeman. Where would it fit in the priorities?
Right.
That is number one. Number two, a policeman himself is under so much of stress. From stress which is from within the department, all kinds of injustices, at the drop of a hat, people get suspended, people get transferred. Then the stress from without, everybody is gunning for you all the time. I remember in earlier part of my career, we were not so much under, say, media glare. It was far easier and far, less stressful to work then. Now that we are so much under scrutiny, every act of ours is, watched and commented upon. Chief ministers, they go on dharna and they go on, they start demanding people's heads to roll and so on and so forth.
Okay, so you're saying scrutiny also has a role to play, adding to those stress levels?
And not to sell the profession of psychiatry and mental health,
yes.
but we genuinely, what we need to do is, with the changing societies, we need to reduce the stigma of suffering from mental stress,
right.
and reduce the stigma and the hesitation for going for help.
Right.
That's the biggest issue in our transitional society. Still, there's a huge gap between the stress and the psychological problems that we face, any one of us, and the programs that exist, and we avail of that.
Right.
So somewhere there's really a huge need to destigmatize help seeking.
Alec has an intervention. Go ahead, Alec.
Yeah, I want to say that yes, I do agree that the police are under tremendous strain because there are just not enough police, and we don't have enough money to fund the police and pay them better and give them better living quarters. But coming to the citizens of the city, there is no place to recreate yourself. You go, you travel for an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, hanging on to the train strap in Bombay and falling off, and seeing people actually falling off the train and killed every day. And then you get to your office, you do your work, and then on the way back the same thing, and there's no chance to recreate yourself. The mind is all bogged down with work and travel and work.
I think
and
that's a very fair point. Where is the time? But also I'd like to add to this, are there enough safe places, safe fora in which to discuss problems within the family? I mean, can you take these to helplines? Can you take them to psychiatrists? Because as Dr. Desai was also saying, that there is so much stigma attached to the whole process of even admitting to any kind of mental frailty.
Much larger campaigns are required for housing localities and communities to be addressing the problem of their negative mental health issues in the family. Each family has. With the nuclearization, the cushioning of communication is less. But you see, the helpline and the people available in the locality, and also maybe the first aid counselors. You see, the community has the responsibility, the RWAs have the responsibility for, haven't we seen cases in Noida last year and in Rohini where the 2 sisters were evacuated,
right.
the schizophrenic, and then actually nobody was there to even
so
take them.
No warning signs were seen by anybody.
Nobody, and no addressal forum. The cops could not do anything. The idea is a multidisciplinary approach to even appreciating the early signs, which I think even the citizens of the nation...
Less stigma for seeking help, more counselors, more buffer systems, more willingness to accept that I could be suffering and I can get help.
But having said that, Dr. Desai, isn't there also a huge shortage of medical health professionals, even for a city like Delhi? I mean, 250 odd psychiatrists at a ballpark figure.
But frankly, you don't necessarily need a psychiatrist for everyone.
Right.
And that's a good point to recognize, which is where, like Jiten and we are both saying, psychologists, social workers, counselors, lay professional trained counselors, it's the whole band of mental health professionals that can really help once the person has developed a problem. But more importantly, for prevention, as Alec Padamsee said, a whole lot of buffer systems. See, each one of us, if I might say, micro level, individuals, meso, the small communities, and the larger communities at macro levels, you'll have to have a huge lot of buffer systems as to how do you get out of the problem.
Okay, very quickly, Alec, I'll have to take last comments. We're completely out of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, look, one of the things about a city, unlike a village or a small town, are there places where you can go and walk and recreate yourself? You can go out with your family. Right. Even on weekends, there's no place in a city like Bombay, which is a vertical city, you don't have any place to actually get any kind of recreation. In the old days, we used to have clubs. There were lots of clubs. And you'd join and you'd, have a drink with your friends, or you just play with the children in a club and you'd meet other people. Now you don't have any of that. You just cooped up in a one-bedroom flat with about 6 of you living, one on top of the other, no place to recreate yourself. I really think open spaces is a very crying need for psychological problems in our cities.
Open spaces, certainly, but that's not a problem necessarily that Delhi faces.
No,
So
no.
the stresses could vary from urban centre to urban
Bombay,
centre.
actually.
Yes.
But essentially, to keep repeating, there will have to be positive, promotive, protective mechanisms because stress is a reality that you can't escape.
Can't escape. Well, I think we've really covered all aspects of this. I'd like to thank Neeraj Kumar, Alec Padamsee, Dr. Desai and Dr. Nagpal for joining us on this discussion tonight. That's it then on the Left, Right and Centre. Do join us again.